Hi. Please take a journey with me today inside of your mind to either start a new way of thinking or to change a pattern of thought that you already have. As psychologists, we believe that the greatest goal of humans is to connect. And one of the ways that we connect is through building systems. So please imagine with me for a second that we all live within systems, starting with the smallest system, our families, and growing ever larger to include our schools, work, communities, our countries, and even the entire world. This is one of the ways that we interact with one another. It's one of the ways that we connect. The systems impact us, and we impact the systems. Within these systems, we influence one another with our individual power and with the collective power of the institutions that help to manage the systems. The green arrows represent the isms and bias that we each experience pushing in on us. The blue arrows pushing out represent the privileges and power that we each have that push on each other and the systems that we are a part of. Taking myself as an example, some of my blue arrows, or my privileges and power, include that I am white, I am straight, I am cis, I am able-bodied, I am middle class, and I am educated. One of the green arrows or bias that I experience that pushes down on me is that I am a woman. In this and many societies, being a man has more privileges and power than being a woman. Here's a twist. We tend to only be able to see the arrows that we ourselves experience. So for me, when I see another woman, I can think, I bet she experiences bias because she's a woman too. Wouldn't it be great if you could know more about your own bias and privilege arrows, as well as those of the people around you? That's awareness. A lot of people are talking about unconscious bias awareness. And that is great. It's great to get awareness. However, what we're finding in the research is that when people get awareness, sometimes they have no idea what to do with it. They begin to feel guilt and shame. Guilt and shame lead to denial. When we have denial, we shut down. When we shut down, we cannot connect with other people. So I started thinking, wouldn't it be great if we were aware, plus we had some tools that would help us to better connect with other people in all the areas of our life. So I came up with this idea. We have awareness, plus we get education, plus empathy. And together, these three equal FluidEQ. FluidEQ is the ability to connect more deeply and more meaningfully with all the people in your life, people like you and not like you, in the different systems that you are a part of. So let's think again about that awareness. What is awareness? Awareness is knowing more about who you are in the world, about your power and your privileges, as well as the bias that you might experience. What's bias? Well, bias is important because our brains have to sort through millions of pieces of information minute by minute. Bias is part of that function, and it is essential. When we talk about bias, we generally focus on implicit bias, which comes from our unconscious minds. That's unfortunate because the second half of bias is explicit bias, which comes from our conscious minds. Implicit bias is formed in the brainstem, the most primary and basic parts of our brain. The brainstem is responsible for helping us have initial reactions, as well as basic functions such as breathing. On the other hand, explicit bias is formed in your frontal cortex, which is the most advanced part of your brain, and it's responsible for executive functioning and planning. You can manage your bias. All you have to do is have some awareness, engage your frontal cortex, and come up with new ways of thinking. We can either manage our bias, or we can pretend it isn't there. One way to manage that bias is to say, I accept that it's there, move past denial, and get shame and guilt out of the way. Another way to manage bias is to get educated. Remember the second piece. How do you get educated? You get new experiences, you read, and you start listening to other people. Because you have some awareness, you realize that you cannot assume another person's experience. So you ask, and you ask, and you ask. Awareness helps us to know who we are and how we fit into the systems of our life. Education helps us to have shared knowledge, understanding, and language. And empathy helps us to begin to see what another person's experience is. Without empathy, you can have awareness and hopefully some information and education, but it is unlikely that you will be deeply connected with another person or groups of people. Empathy helps us to have openness. Two specific aspects of empathy, self-awareness and mindfulness, lead us to be less defensive. And when we are less defensive, we can move from a place of disconnection to connection. Empathy comes from genuineness and vulnerability. All of these things are learned. Empathy is taught. I will never become you, and you will never become me. However, if we commit individually and collectively to raise our FluidEQ, we can control our bias, and we can all connect better. And when we connect better, we can all be better. Thank you.